This is the solution to example 7 from notes 3.4. And here we're given a fourth degree polynomial function, and we're asked to find all zeros. And then once we do that, we want to write the polynomial function as a product of linear factors. And these could have imaginary or irrational zeros. So we're given that rad 6 is a root. Root is the same thing as a solution or a zero. We know that these irrational zeros come in conjugate pairs. So we know that negative rad 6 is also a zero. So I'm going to begin here by trying to find the quadratic factor that yields the zeros of plus or minus rad 6. So we're going to find quadratic factor with zeros at plus or minus rad 6. So I know I would have x minus rad 6 and x minus negative rad 6, which would be x plus rad 6, right? Each one of the zeros gives me a factor. This is a difference of squares pattern. And when we expand this, we'll get x squared minus rad 6 squared, and minus rad 6 squared will just be minus 6. So this factor is going to be x squared minus 6. That's a quadratic factor of our polynomial f of x. So in this case, we can use long division to start factoring the polynomial. If we had linear factors of the form x plus something or x minus something, we could use synthetic division. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set up the long division. And I have x to the fourth minus 2x cubed minus 3x squared plus 12x minus 18. That's my polynomial function. I'm going to divide that by the quadratic factor we just found that gave us the zeros at plus or minus rad 6. So I want to ask myself, how many times does x squared go into x to the fourth? That will be x squared times, and then we're going to multiply. So we'll have x squared times x squared is x to the fourth. X squared times minus 6 is negative 6x squared. I'm going to line the terms up with corresponding like terms. And now I'm going to subtract. So x to the fourth minus x to the fourth is 0x to the fourth. I'm not going to write that. Negative 2x cubed minus 0 is going to be negative 2x cubed. And negative 3x squared minus negative 6x squared is going to become plus 3x squared. I'll bring down the 12x. Next thing we want to know is how many times does x squared go into negative 2x cubed? That will be negative 2x times. And now we're going to multiply. So negative 2x times x squared is negative 2x cubed. Negative 2x times negative 6 is plus 12x. And now we subtract. So negative 2x squared minus 2x squared is 0. And then 3x squared minus 0 is still 3x squared. And 12x minus 12x is 0x. So I'm not going to write that. I'm going to bring down the minus 18. And the last thing we want to know is how many times does x squared go into 3x squared? That's 3 times. So I'm going to put plus 3 on up by my quotient. And now I'm going to multiply. 3 times x squared is 3x squared. Negative 6 times positive 3 is negative 18. And now we get a remainder of 0, which is what we should, because we knew that x squared minus 6 is a factor. So from here, we can write that f of x is the product of x squared minus 6 times x squared minus 2x plus 3. So now we've written our function as the product of quadratic factors. But this asks us to write our function as a product of linear factors. Okay, so linear factors. So we need to actually find each of the zeros. So we need to do a little more work. So we can either complete the square or use quadratic formula to find linear factors of, so I'm going to say find linear factors or zeros of x squared minus 2x plus 3. So we need to solve x squared minus 2x plus 3 equals 0. I'm going to complete the square. You could also do quadratic formula. So I'm going to put the 3 on the opposite side. I want to add b over 2 squared, which in this case is negative 2 over 2 squared, which is 1. I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So now I have x minus 1 squared is equal to negative 2. Take the square root of both sides, extract square roots. So we're going to have x minus 1 is equal plus or minus the square root of negative 2. So x equals 1 plus or minus I rad 2. Those are our two additional zeros. So now, finally, we want to write this function as the product of linear factors. So we know we have 4 zeros. So these are 2 zeros, and our other zeros are x equals plus or minus rad 6. So each 0 yields a factor. So each 0 yields a linear factor. So now we can write this as f of x is equal to x minus rad 6 times x minus negative rad 6, which will be x plus rad 6, times x minus 1 plus I rad 2, that quantity, and x minus the quantity 1 minus I rad 2. And that is the solution for this function. So to be explicit, we were asked to find all zeros. So these are our zeros. There's 4 of them because we had a 4th degree polynomial function. So plus or minus rad 6 and 1 plus or minus I rad 2. And then the other part of the solution is the factored function that I am highlighting here with the green box. Also note that rather than doing long division to find the quadratic factor x squared minus 2x plus 3, you do synthetic division using rad 6 and negative rad 6 in sequence.